Welcome back, grade 10s. Now let us look at our application questions. We'll start with this one. It says classify the following industries into primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. Indicate with a cross next to the relevant answer. So here we have industries whereby we need to classify them under primary, secondary, and tertiary. We'll start with the hotel. We know a hotel offers a service rather than a product. So which of the three sectors deals with services? Okay, so it's our tertiary. So we would put a cross there under tertiary. Moving on to the forestry. Forestry has to do with where do we find our forests? Is it in the primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary? It has to do with natural resource because it is a natural resource. So where do we find our natural resources under which sector? You are correct. It is the primary sector. Then we move on to banking industry. Where do we find our banking industry? Remember, we don't deal with products at bank, but we deal with a service rather than a product. So in which sector amongst the three that deals with a service rather than a product? It is our tertiary sector, yes. Then here's a motto. Where do we find our motto? Do we find it under primary, under secondary, under tertiary? It is manufactured in the secondary sector. So we'll put a cross under the secondary sector. Then moving on to the wool. Where do we find a wool? Do we find it in the primary sector, secondary sector, or tertiary sector? We find it in the secondary sector. It's not under primary sector because we are not talking of sheep whereby we take the sheep skin and try to change it. Yes, the sheep skin is taken from the primary sector, but it is transformed to become a wool in the secondary sector. Hence, the correct answer there is the secondary sector. Let us move on to the next question, which says list examples of businesses in the informal sector. In our informal sector, before we even go to those examples, let us just remind one another. We said that in our informal sector, we find businesses that are not registered with the CIPC. We find businesses that are not registered with South African Revenue Services. These businesses do not pay tax. So these businesses are ran and belong solely to individuals themselves. So which are businesses that fall under the informal sector? Yes, it's our spaza shops. You saw that one. And moving on, we have our street vendors. Street vendors do not register with CIPC. They do not pay tax. So we find them under informal sectors. Our hairdressers. Yes, I know some of you will be asking questions to say, but we do have some hairdressers that are registered, stuff like that. Yes, we do have those, but here we are referring to those which are unregistered with the CIPC who do not pay tax. So you find even hairdressers under the informal sector. Gardening services, you find them under informal sector as part of the examples of those businesses that do not pay tax, part of examples of businesses that are not registered. Then car wash services. Our car wash services, they also fall under the informal sector, as well as other home-based activities. Now, let us look at our third question, which says elaborate on the meaning of the formal and informal sectors. So we'll start with the meaning of formal sector. Businesses in the formal sector are registered and pay taxes. So all the businesses that you would find under your formal sector, these businesses are registered to operate, to offer us with the activities that they are offering us to us as consumers. They are registered. These businesses, they pay tax. They are registered with SARS, so they pay tax. These businesses are required to register with Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, CIPC. So these businesses that fall under, if you would want your business to fall under the formal sector, you need to make sure that you register your business with CIPC so that it becomes a legal business, a business that is known, a business that is operating legally, and a business that is also paying tax to the South African Revenue Services. So businesses have to register with SARS. Why register with SARS? So that they are able to do what? To pay taxes. So that's the reason they have to register with South African Revenue Services. Then we move on to the meaning of informal sector. Businesses in the informal sector are not registered with CIPC and do not pay tax on profits to SARS. So all businesses that you find under the informal sector, these businesses are not registered with the CIPC, and these businesses do not pay tax on the profits that they make. So all the profits that they make, they solely belong to the owner alone. The informal sector refers to those workers who are self-employed. So the informal sector rather refers to entrepreneurs who are working for themselves, who have employed themselves. They pay themselves salaries. They do not depend on another person to pay them the salary, but they provide themselves with a form of income because they are the ones who started their businesses. So they fall under the informal sector. Owners of businesses in the informal sector take responsibility for the success and failure of the business. So since this business is not registered, does not pay tax, is not registered with CIPC, it belongs to the entrepreneur. So the owners of these informal businesses, they take the responsibility of the success and the failure of their businesses. If they decide to be lazy and not grab opportunities that come along their way, their business is not going to be successful if they decide to be lazy. But if they are active, if they always grab opportunities, they see if they change actually every threat to become an opportunity, so they are likely to see their businesses succeed. It all depends on them, so they are responsible for the success and failure of their businesses. Let's move on to the fourth question. It says, discuss the importance of the informal sector. Why is the informal sector important? Because it encourages entrepreneurship and self-employment. So the importance of the informal sector is that it encourages people to start their own businesses, to become self-employed. So it's very important. That makes the informal sector important because it encourages people to start their own businesses to make their income so that they become self-employed. Provides employment opportunities for communities and contributes to poverty alleviation. Another important aspect of the informal sector is that it provides employment opportunities because you can be able to employ other people in the community if you have started your own business in the informal sector. So by doing so, by employing other people, then it assists in reducing the poverty that is facing our communities. Still under the importance of the informal sector is that people working in the informal sector gain work experience, which enables them to apply for jobs in the formal sector. So obviously the people that you have employed under your business, if it's under the informal sector, those people can gain work experience, which in turn can be used to apply for jobs in the formal sector. So that's what makes our informal sector important, because it also contributes in making sure that people are becoming self-empowered. Let us just go for a quick break and I will see you shortly.